In this installment, at the end of the season, we get to embrace Saturday football. We have a 3-game slate on Draftkings. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Chef D, and I'm here to give you the winning ingredients for our Saturday night. It's not even Saturday night. It's a Saturday straight 3-game slate we got going on. But before I deep dive into this very, very intriguing 3 games, guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter at MetsNetShetsD. Don't forget about that TikTok at Chef_D91. And don't forget about the Patreon. I'm going to talk about that really, really soon. That's been on fire, okay? On fire right now. Now, we're looking at the subscribers total. We are currently at 1.5 thousand subscribers. Let's continue to push that forward, guys. If you're viewing this video right now and you're not currently subscribed, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. If you're already subscribed, why not just click that like and leave a comment as well. Everything helps the YouTube algorithm, all right? We did pretty solidly in that previous video with the Chargers and the Raiders. Let's continue to bring that positive energy there. Now, for the Patreon, which I just spoke about last night, I brought out Thursday Night Football and NBA plays. The Tier 1 plays were a total sweep, okay? We had Raiders money line, we had Cavaliers +10, and Clippers. Those were the Tier 1. We almost had a full complete sweep. The only thing that did not come through was the Thunder +2. And then my prop of the day was Zamir White touchdown, anytime touchdown. That was my top play, and here are the results. Look at all these tickets that cash. Obviously, Minnesota and the Clippers, that came through. Raiders, and I paired it with the Zamir White touchdown, that came through. Zamir White first touchdown as well, just to get some better odds. I love Zamir White finally getting that start over Josh Jacobs because he was out. Zamir White first TD came through, and then shout out to Todd. He put everything together. So he did all my Tier 1 selections with my favorite play. And this is what you got. $5 for 38. That was a +669. So that was a very good ROI on that one. Anytime touchdown was Zamir White. That was a solid play. And then we had, and we're back at, no. We're back at the beginning again. All right. So, and obviously the Raiders money line. So if you want winning bets, sign up for that Patreon right now. We want to shout out Michael Cole for signing up as a free member, and Insta Black TV signing up for the winning tier. So thank you guys for joining the community. Let's get into the slate. For this 3-game slate, we're going to kick things off at that quarterback position. At the top here, the most expensive guy you would have to pay for will be Jared Goff for the Detroit Lions, going up against the Denver Broncos. This is going to be a tough matchup here for Jared Goff. He's coming off back-to-back games on the road, so you expect him to play better. But this Denver Broncos team here are pretty solid against opposing quarterbacks. If we're looking at fantasy points allowed to opposing quarterbacks, Denver is 7th overall, 14th in the red zone, only allowing around 231 yards and about 0.8 touchdowns per game, okay? They've been playing very at a whole new level now after that horrible performance against the Dolphins where they gave up 70 points and that bad game against the Jets. That's been only the 2 bad performances from this Denver team, and this Denver team is trying to stay in the playoff hunt. Detroit is pretty solidified at the top of the AFC North. If they tailspin a little bit, some of the guys behind them can catch up, like the Vikings. But just letting you know, this is going to be a tough matchup back home for Jared Goff. He's probably going to get the most ownership here. So I'm not saying it's that great of a spot. I like some other guys. The other quarterback I do like is going to be on the other side of the ball, and that's going to be Russell Wilson, all right? This defense has been looking putrid in the Detroit Lions. They should be getting C.J. Gardner-Johnson back. That's going to help. But That is him. Just that one player is not going to help the whole entire defense. Okay, Detroit Lions the last past 5 weeks, 31st overall, 26th in the red zone. They're giving up around 250 yards passing, 2 TDs, and giving up 54 yards rushing to opposing quarterbacks as well. That's what Russell Wilson can bring to the table: upside throwing and rushing the football. He already has a game of 44 yards and a touchdown, and 34 yards and a touchdown the last past 2 out of the 3 weeks. Okay, so Russell Wilson has been cooking as of late, playing very solidly, and this is a perfect spot for him to get things going and continue this push to make the playoffs. All right, they do not want to fall to 500. They want to continue to fall and get to 8-6. So Russell Wilson here, love him at $6,000 in salary. A lot of people are going to be on Detroit because, hey, they have to bounce back. They're back home. But Russell Wilson, Sean Payton have something else to say about that. All right, so Russell Wilson is going to be my favorite quarterback as of right now. We're going to continue to go down to Jake Browning against Minnesota. This is a tough matchup for Jake Browning. He has played outstanding the last past 2 weeks, but those are better matchups. Jacksonville and the Colts have been struggling against opposing quarterbacks. And now he's going up against Minnesota, who in the last past 2 weeks have only given up 12 points. All right, 12 offensive points. That's what they've been giving up in the last past 2 weeks. All right, so this is going to be a tough test for him. And he's not really getting the ball to Jamar Chase where he needs to. They need to feed their star if they're going to have an opportunity to beat Minnesota. Minnesota and their defense with under Brian Flores plays that cover A defense. Okay, they're going to make sure you do not beat them deep, keep everything in front, and make tackles. All right, so that's what Minnesota has been doing. That's why they keep low scores and basically waiting for you to make mistakes. So Jake Browning is going to be a big test for him. I'm going to bump him down just a little bit because of the matchup against Minnesota. All right, the next guy we're going to be talking about will be Gardner Minshew here for the Colts. Colts are home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers have been struggling and reeling as of late, and that's mainly because of poor quarterback play here. But Minshew, this is not a great matchup because technically this defense is very solid in the Pittsburgh Steelers, but we got Gardner Minshew as a gunslinger, and he doesn't care. As you can see, the attempts, 39, 42, 41. He's going to be throwing the football at a very high clip, getting to his pass catchers and Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, and the plethora of tight ends that they have for the Indianapolis Colts. So Gardner Minshew's gunslinger mentality is probably going to save him and get him out of this bad matchup because it's just going to put up volume. All right, and I think he can create and have a positive outcome here on this 3-game slate. So Minshew is an okay play at the quarterback position. The guy that I like that's going to be the cheapest is going to be Nick Mullins. I love Nick Mullins. If you want to save salary, go against the grain and ownership, someone that has some upside, someone that is not afraid to pass the football. He's done it many a times with the 49ers, if you remember Nick Mullins, and now he's going to have a whole cast of characters here with TJ Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, KJ Osborne. He gets to run this offense for the Minnesota Vikings here, and I like him against the Cincinnati Bengals. If we're looking at opposing fantasy points allowed to opposing quarterbacks here, the Cincinnati Bengals are 25th overall and 9th in the red zone. They're giving up almost 300 yards passing and 1.2 TDs per game to that quarterback position. That bodes well for Nick Mullins. Okay, Nick Mullins and Kevin O'Connell, they're going to be putting up a game plan here to attack the Cincinnati Bengals in their weak secondary. Okay, they have a very young secondary there in the safety positions after losing Jesse Bates, and that's where you can succeed against this Bengals team. So I love Nick Mullins as a sneaky play at that quarterback position, okay? Let's go on to the running backs. On to the running back position, this is where you can set yourself apart, get a little creative. There's a lot of guys here with some positive matchups here. So starting at the top, obviously, Jonathan Taylor is going to be out this week, so that's going to be Zach Moss. Zach Moss is the lead running back for the Colts. We've seen him have huge games earlier in the season when Jonathan Taylor was out. 14 against New Orleans, 17 against Jacksonville, 36 against Tennessee, 25 against Baltimore, and 20 against the Houston Texans. So a lot of people were let down from Zach Moss in that game against Cincinnati. I think you guys should go back to the well. All right, people been let down against Cincinnati and Tennessee. Yes, this is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are okay run defense, but if you're looking at overall stats, they're 21st overall. And Zach Moss has had tough matchups already this year, and he has surpassed expectations. All right, he's going to get rushing and receiving work as well. Love Zach Moss as a play at the running back. People been burnt the past 2 weeks. I think he comes back very strong in this game against this Pittsburgh Steelers team. He's going to have a lot of opportunities in that red zone area to get some touchdowns, all right? Next group of guys we're going to be looking at will be the Detroit Lions running back. We have Jahmyr Gibbs and we have David Montgomery. Obviously, they are splitting work, but both of these guys are in solid matchups. If you want to beat Denver, all right, Denver is a very strong secondary. They're good against the pass. The weakness is against the run if you want to attack them that way. All right, so Jahmyr Gibbs rushing the football, having a great yards per carry, 6, 7, 4.9, 5.5. That's what you like to see from Jahmyr Gibbs. His explosiveness out of the backfield catching the ball sets him apart. So Jahmyr Gibbs at 6,700, have no problem going towards him at that price. And then you have David Montgomery. This is their battering ram. This is the guy that's going to get the majority of the rushes, and in goal-to-goal situations, he's going to see touches in their red zone to get into the end zone or to get first downs. All right, so David Montgomery here has been playing solidly all year long. 11.5 against Chicago last week and pretty much a blowout. So I expect David Montgomery to come back and have another solid game. If he needs to get in the end zone to really pay off, because the majority of the receptions are going to go the way of Jahmyr Gibbs, just to let you guys know. So whoever you want to play, you have more confidence in between Gibbs and Montgomery, that's up to you. If you want to get creative, you could play both, but I don't think that's going to be a fully worth it. But hey, that is an idea. Strange things have happened. Hey, we just saw the Raiders score 2 defensive touchdowns and pretty much every offensive player get a touchdown on that team. So crazier things have happened, all right? So like the Detroit Lions running backs, we have another group of running backs that are in a very good position, and that's going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers running backs going up against the Colts, all right? The fact that trusting Mitchell Trubisky to throw the ball, that's going to be the problem with the Steelers. So they need to establish the run game, and the weakness of the Colts is their run stopping ability. If we're looking at fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs, they are 30th overall and 26th in the red zone, giving up 133 yards and 4.6 yards per carry. So the bread and butter here, if we have a tandem of running backs between Najee Harris, who has been playing more consistent as of late, kind of, I want to say, I just lied about that. Najee Harris sucks, okay? Najee Harris is not good. As you can see, 2.4 yards to carry against Patriots, 3.9 against Arizona in a phenomenal spot. If you want to play a Pittsburgh Steelers running back, you're playing the explosive Jaylen Warren, all right? If things get out of hand or if they need to come back, Mitchell Trubisky has no problem checking down the football to Jaylen Warren. He can create after the catch, okay? We've seen plus performances from Jaylen Warren this year. Have a little bit of a rough patch in the past 3 weeks, but this is a perfect spot for Jaylen Warren to bounce back. We saw 26 against Cincinnati. We saw 22 against Green Bay. We saw 14 against Tennessee. So Jaylen Warren is not shy of making or breaking a run and taking it all the way to the house like he did against Cleveland. And he is the spark in this offense if they can't get things going, because Najee Harris tends to run for only 2 yards. They're going to lean on Jaylen Warren. So I love Jaylen Warren on this Saturday slate, all right? The next running back we can start to look at will be Ty Chandler. All right, there's going to be no Alexander Madison. That's going to leave Ty Chandler as the number 1 running back here for the Minnesota Vikings against the Cincinnati Bengals. He came through against the Raiders with 12 carries for 35 yards, also chipped in with 3 receptions. So he's going to get the bulk and majority of the work. He needs to get in the end zone to really pay off, but you should be seeing a solid floor of 10 fantasy points from Ty Chandler, and hopefully we can get a little bit more from that. All right, he has the more of the juice out of these 2 running backs anyway, and I'm glad he's finally getting an opportunity to show his talents. All right, so Ty Chandler is a guy we can look at 5,300. And then last but not least, at that running back position, you have Joe Mixon of the Cincinnati Bengals. He's going to be purely a volume play. All right, check down and safety net for Jake Browning. That's what we saw the past 2 weeks. 29 against Jacksonville, 21 against the Colts. He's getting an enormous amount of touches here. Joe Mixon, 21 rushes last week, and he also chipped in with 3 receptions for 46 yards. Outstanding to see that. They're doing a lot with the screen game as well with Joe Mixon and with Chase Brown. So if you want to punt the running back position, Chase Brown is getting more and more work. They're utilizing the running backs more to help Jake Browning as well, and that's why you're seeing down numbers for all the wide receivers to the Bengals, because they're utilizing the running backs and tight ends a little bit more. So Chase Brown came through 8 for 25 and chipped in with a very explosive running back screen that went for a touchdown as well. So Chase Brown, if you want to punt the running back position. Let's go on to the wide receivers. On to the next place at the wide receiver position here. We're going to continue to correlate with quarterbacks. I already told you that Denver Broncos have a great matchup here going up against the Detroit Lions. As you can see, fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers, 29th overall and 27th against wide receivers in the red zone. Okay, so we're going to be leaning on the Denver Broncos core here. That's not my favorite core, but it is the core that has the best matchup. Courtland Sutton has been a stud each and every week and has been the number 1 target for Russell Wilson. Could we see some other guys step up? Sure. But if you want the more consistent guy, it's going to be Courtland Sutton in this wide receiver core for the Denver Broncos. As you can see, he has 10 touchdowns already this year. Jerry Jeudy is usually the number 2 wide receiver here. He's yet to break out, but it could happen in this game against the Detroit Lions, all right? If they try to key in on Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy could have a solid game at 4,700. And then Marvin Mims is going to be your big splash guy. He could create, and he's the guy that takes the deep routes or does end arounds or gadget plays. Marvin Mims has that type of special ability to take one catch and take it all the way to the end zone. All right, the next core of wide receivers we're going to be looking at will be the Minnesota Vikings. I told you I love Nick Mullins in this game, attacking that secondary here in the Cincinnati Bengals. Justin Jefferson is going to be fine to play this week, and I like him as a top wide receiver play on this slate. Jordan Addison is a solid number 2, who hasn't had a big game since earlier in the season because of all the turmoil at the quarterback position, but he's a guy that can definitely set himself apart and get some opportunities. And then KJ Osborne is your number 3 wide receiver that you can consider being, and he's been getting a solid amount of targets each and every week. All right, but love Justin Jefferson. People got burnt from him last week, so we're going to go back to that this one. All right, now for some one-offs, because I don't really like the stacks here. If we go with the other teams with Indianapolis and Cincinnati and Pittsburgh and Detroit, so someone else we can consider will be Deontay Johnson for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's the number 1 wide receiver for the Steelers and the favorite target of Mitchell Trubisky. All right, Trubisky is hard to trust, but he does trust Deontay Johnson. As you can see, back-to-back weeks of double-digit fantasy points and back-to-back weeks of touchdowns as well. So we can go to that of Deontay Johnson. If you want to veer off and go George Pickens, by all means, feel free. But this is going to be a hard guy to trust here in Mitchell Trubisky because he is very, very indecisive. He turns the ball over at a very high rate, and that's why they played horribly the past 2 games, losing to the Cardinals and the Patriots. Okay? Now, for the Indianapolis Colts, Michael Pittman has been on fire, okay? Absolutely on fire. But this game here, I think things cool off, all right? We've seen a ton of targets from him, 11, 16, 13, and 12. But this game here against the Pittsburgh Steelers, they are very strong against number one wide receivers. And I could expect some secondary guys to come through for the Colts. Like I said, they throw to the tight end position at a very high rate, and wide receiver Josh Downs that works in the slot has an opportunity to win as well. And this is the number 2 wide receiver for the Colts, their rookie wide receiver in Josh Downs. He had some solid games earlier in the season, but he is not shy of having a big game, all right? He had a nice run earlier in the year with 15, 13, 26, and 14. And Gardner Minshew does like throwing him the football. Just a few weeks ago, he had 13 targets. So I like Josh Downs as a sleeper selection. And then another one-off, if we're looking at the Detroit Lions, that's going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's the number 1 wide receiver for Detroit, and has been having an absolutely solid year all year round. And if we're looking at his home and road splits, it's pretty much even, all right? He's just been solid. It doesn't matter where, but this is a spot against Denver. He's going to have to be seeing Patrick Surtain coverage. So that's going to be a little bit of a tougher matchup for him. If we want a sleeper wide receiver for the Lions, it's going to be Jameson Williams. He's a boom bust player, but he can take any catch and take it all the way to the house, all right? We saw a big game from him against New Orleans with 10 fantasy points, and then against Chicago with 12.4. All right. So if he gets that opportunity and he's in space, he can definitely take it all the way. I like Jameson Williams as a punt play on this slate here. All right. Let's move on to the tight ends. All right, for the tight end position, last but not least, we're going to start off with the tight ends of the Indianapolis Colts because they technically have the best matchup on the board. The past 5 weeks, the Steelers have been putrid against opposing tight ends, 32 overall and 27th in the red zone, okay? But the problem with the Colts in the tight ends position is they don't have one. They don't have two. They pretty much have 3 tight ends that they use. Kylan Granson at 2,600, Mo Alley Cox, and Will Mallory. As of late, Will Mallory has been getting the majority of targets. If we look at the past 3 weeks, he has 12 targets. He had a very good game against Cincinnati, 5 for 46. If we're looking at a secondary option, Kyle Granson was the guy that was promoted at the beginning of the year. He was injured in the middle of the season, came back. We saw some solid targets from him. 7 targets the past 2 weeks from Kylan Granson, okay? And then Mo Alley Cox, he had a touchdown last week. So you could see this ball pretty much spread in 3 different directions. If I had to choose my favorite option at the tight end, it would be Will Mallory because we've seen consistency from him in the past 3 weeks getting targets. So if you had to choose one of these guys, if you want to punt at the tight end spot, Will Mallory would be the option at 2,500. That's very, very cheap, and it would set you apart from everyone else. But you don't have to do that technically. I just wanted you to give you the best matchup on the board. But these other guys, I think you could do a lineup with 2 tight ends, set yourself apart. Just get Sam Laporta and get TJ Hawkinson. These guys are in phenomenal spots here at the tight end position. As you can see, fantasy points allowed to opposing tight ends. The Bengals are 30th and 22nd in the red zone. And you have the Denver Broncos right behind them, 29th and 20th as well. So that's Sam Laporta and that's TJ Hawkinson. So I would love to go double tight end on this slate here. Set yourself apart here and get a solidified amount of targets for your lineup builds. All right. So Laporta, Hawkinson, love them there. And then after those tight ends, and like I said, it gets very, very ugly. Pat Freiermuth, he has a better connection with Kenny Pickett than Mitchell Trubisky. And he does have 12 targets. The past 2 weeks, it's just been bad quarterback play from Mitchell Trubisky, bad decision making, and bad inaccuracy coming his way. But you could go that route with Pat Freiermuth. The Cincinnati Bengals, they're running out 2 to 3 tight ends as well with Tanner Hudson and Will Cox and Irv Smith. If you want to go that route, you can. I do not trust that as well. And then some other options down low. Just go to Will Mallory. That's going to be my final punt play at that tight end position, okay? Will Mallory at 2,500. If you don't go Laporta or don't go Hockenson, I will punt with Will Mallory on this slate, all right? And then last but not least, we're going to go over the defenses. If we're choosing my top options, my first option will be the Vikings at the bottom here at 2,800. Love their matchup against Cincinnati. I like the Colts matchup, who has been turning over the football, well, forcing turnovers the past couple weeks. They had 17 fantasy points against Tennessee, 11 against Tampa Bay, 16 against New Orleans, and 26 against Carolina. They've been putting up some very solid numbers on defense, forcing sacks, creating turnovers and interceptions. I'm very impressed from that Colts defense as of late, and their special teams, okay? So Vikings, Colts, and if you had to choose a third option, I would go with the Denver Broncos, who have had a very solid defense other than the 2 blow-up spots earlier in the season, all right? So thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back with another video very soon, all right? Peace out, guys.